how am I sounding?
Sound good, brother.
Gotcha, keep it slow as possible. Alright, yep, here we go. About to start. Hello everyone, welcome to the Anime Stream Saturday. I am with Patrick, Claire, and our super duper special guest, Sam, aka the Southern SEGA Gentleman.
You got it right that time. How about that?
Well, I had to the other day when I was doing the promo stuff, I had to type in your name like 50 times because your thing to tag you in is like impossible.
Southern SEGA Gent.
Yeah, I didn't know that, so I kept putting the Southern SEGA Gentleman, Southern SEGA Agent, Southern SEGA something.
It's all good, brother. It's all good, brother.
Oh man, card's acting up.
Yeah, you got a little bit of static going on there, brother.
Yeah, trying to fix it.
It's all good, man. All good.
Card is not going. The thing that's dying on me. Alright. Yeah, I have no idea. This cat. This is like running on the edge of edge of the edge of its life going on now. But yeah, hopefully everything's alright. With it's a little bit purpley tinty, but you know. But yeah, welcome to the stream, guys. How's everyone doing today?
We is making it. We is making it.
Yep, I'm doing great. Excited to get started on this.
Yep. So we're just gonna go straight to. I just for people that don't know. Oh well, they're talking, so I can't really talk. What? I just for people that don't really know, this is a game based off a magical girl anime named also Magic Knight Rayearth. It's a really interesting game. Basically, it was literally the last game released on the Sega Saturn in the US. Which is kind of funny since it was an early game on the Japanese Saturn.
I have to catch him before he causes any trouble.
So do you guys have any experience with this game?
I was gonna. I have only played this game maybe twice in my entire life. I have never beat it. Not because I never really got interested into the game. It's just honestly RPGs with me are love or hate. Either I'm gonna love that game. If I watched a YouTube video a couple of days back about a guy. He was basically explaining how if you don't like a game within the first hour, then generally speaking, you're not going to like it. And sometimes I think that might not necessarily be the case, but generally I have to agree with him. If I'm not interested enough in a game to keep playing after the first hour, I'm not going to finish it. And both times I played this game, I could never really get into it. It had a pretty interesting story to begin with. The whole aspect of the magical girl. You know, that's a very Japanese cliche, a lot of anime tropes about it and such, but I never really could, you know, get into the story really.
I gotcha. You're not much of a magical girl anime fan?
No, I'm not really a big magical girl anime fan. I'm more into like mecha, sci-fi, fantasy, you know, and while, you know, some of the magical girl tropes, you know, do fall into some of those categories. I mean, prime example, things like Escaflowne and such. It's not really magical girl, but I mean, it has some of those same, you know, some of those same instances in it. I mean, hell, I watched Cardcaptor Sakura back in the day whenever I was a kid. So, and I watched Sailor Moon as a kid, but I mean, it never really appealed to me that much.
I gotcha. Yeah. Do you know that they're actually doing a new one on Crunchyroll? A new card captor?
I did not know that, and I have a subscription to Crunchyroll. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was on the front page for me this morning. I was thinking, like, wait, isn't that old show?
That was a very old show. What about you, Claire? What do you think? I'm sure you're more of a magical girl anime and more of a interested in this story than I will be.
Yeah, I definitely am a magical girl gal. I have seen this anime, Magic Knight Rayearth, but I haven't had a chance to play the game yet. It's been on my list for a really long time, and I'm a big RPG fan, so I'm sure looking forward to it. But I guess I really haven't had the chance to sit down and play it, and I'm hoping that maybe going through this with Pat will get me motivated to play it for myself.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. It really reminds me of Link to the Past, in terms of the RPG elements in that, where you just hit them with your sword, have the special attacks.
What kind of nightmare is this? That
Yeah, I definitely see the parallels there.
just of what's happening.
Definitely. And one of the cool things about this game is that I don't know if you guys know that the person that plays the red-haired girl, what was her name again? It was
But whatever. We
I
have to
can't remember
find
what her
out
name
what
is.
happened.
The red-haired girl.
Is this strange
Oh,
place?
Hikaru.
Hikaru. She's voiced by the person that does the intro to this game, the musical intro,
One thing's
Well,
for certain.
which I thought was
Interesting.
kind of cool.
As we
Not to
roll
throw a
through
cog
the
up in that
city,
discussion, but does anybody remember Blue Seed?
I never watched that. What was that about?
I decided I was hallucinating. Look,
That was a long time ago. Basically, I'm gonna have to pull up the Wikipedia page on it. That's how long it's been since I watched it. I just kind of thought about it whenever y'all were talking about. My thought was, let me get to my thoughts right here. Blue Seed, perfect.
mentally, this is a trying circumstance.
Way that was long, man. That's really showing my age. God Almighty. Japanese manga series written in Australia. Blah 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 blah. Plot. Old girl thought she was just an ordinary high school student. One day, she's confronted on her way to school by a cat-eyed man with blue Gatamata beads. Okay, that's Japanese. I totally butchered that. Embedded in his hands, who then attempts to kill her. Basically, what goes on, I'm going to give you a synopsis as I remember it, because I'm not going to read Wikipedia. The plants of the world are basically attacking people, and I might be butchering the story, but that's what I've mainly remembered about it. There was just like this aspect of the whole world was kind of going against this stuff, kind of similar to like Blue Gender in a way. But it had a lot of magical girl elements to it, and very 90s fantasy kind of vibe to it, that sci-fi fantasy that was really prominent back then. Well, I was just wondering if anybody had even watched it besides me.
No, I haven't watched it, but I'll have to definitely check that out.
I mean, it's been over a decade more than a decade, probably closer to two decades since I saw it. But I mean, that's kind of what really brought that idea was the opening scene in the game where they're on top of Tokyo Tower. That kind of brought that into my mind.
I gotcha. Yeah, I have to say though, I love the animations in this game. I always love that 2D style.
Did this game did it support the MPEG-1 cart?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think it did.
Because this would have been a prime game to support that.
It's not like the
It
US could take
absolutely
advantage of
would've,
it.
Yeah.
Until you reach the end of your journey together.
Yeah, a lot of those working designs RPGs would have really benefited from having those FMVs and higher quality.
Oh yeah, just the amount of space they take up on the screen though. It blows my mind how much space they take up, because a lot of the FMVs from during that time frame, especially on the Saturn, from my recollection, I mean, you were dealing with maybe 2/3 of the screen being taken up, and the last screen I saw was almost the entirety of it. Like prime example, this FMV right here, that's a significant amount of the screen compared to things of example like I'm just thinking off the top of my head, something like Deep Fear, which has like a little bit more than half the screen being used up sometimes.
I think that with Deep Fear, it's a lot more compressed than this was.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
Yeah, even the Panzer Dragoon games, I think, are more compressed than this.
Man, I'm kind of bummed out. My graphics are deciding to go on this stream.
It's all good, man. You got a surprise in store for the viewership next week, so.
Yeah. Hopefully, it'll definitely alleviate this issue. My God.
Just hit it with a hammer, man. It'll work. It's either gonna break or it's gonna work.
Well, then I have to cancel the stream if one of those things happens.
No, man. We'll just pirate some video of some anime and throw it on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed this animation is extremely compressed.
It's not really showing terribly though on the stream, to be honest with you, because I'm looking on it on a 32-inch curved monitor. It's not horrible by any means from what I'm looking at.
I gotcha.
I mean, it doesn't look much worse than like a video CD of an anime from back in the day. I mean, there's a lot more rough edges to it. It's not as soft by any means, but I mean, it's still plenty watchable.
Yeah, you know, I don't tend to mind the compression in some of these older 2D games. I think it actually is quite charming.
Gotcha. We got any questions from any of the chats?
Holy smoke.
I'm only seeing myself. I'm seeing that Morgan is here. I'm seeing that David was here. I'm seeing that Claire was here. And I suppose that I'm here as well.
How unfortunate. No.
It's okay. It's okay. 6 people are watching. Go ahead and give us some comments up in there. I know we got some anime freaks and otakus in the current modern terminology of weeboo, so go ahead and drop that up in the chat and tell us what your favorite anime is, and then we will tell you if it's awesome or if it's trash. Right, Claire?
That's right.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about is, I guess to sort of talk about a topic that we might be talking about in the future, a what if. What do you guys think? What would happen if Working Designs came out with more RPGs for this system? Do you think they would actually be more well produced, especially after Final Fantasy VII came out, or do you think, more better received and have more stock, or do you think it would just be more rare stuff that'd be thrown on the Saturn?
So are you specifically talking about the idea that somebody would be producing a new game for the Saturn, or be trying to bring over another fan translation of a game like Sakura Wars or something like that?
No, my question is, what about if back in the day that Working Designs had like almost all of them released?
Okay. I think honestly, if it had happened earlier in the game, earlier in the time period, I should say, if it had happened earlier in the time period, like say back in 1995, 1996, I think it could have done some good. You got to kind of blame Bernie Stoller and Sega of America to some extent for the limited RPG releases we had. But Final Fantasy VII was one of those first. I was never really drawn into it, but it was one of them very first open-ended kind of open world 3D-ish. It wasn't what we're looking at right now. It wasn't 2D sprites on top of a 2D plane. It wasn't that kind of Zelda-esque kind of look to it, and it was very different. And then on top of that, you threw the CG into it, the intros, which were phenomenal. That's one thing I did very much enjoy about watching my friends play the game. So I don't necessarily know if Final Fantasy's success rode off of the success of the Final Fantasy titles from the Nintendo era, or if it was more just a divergence in gameplay from previous RPG tropes of sorts. So I think that's kind of the main thing we got to think about. And if you really look at a lot of the RPGs that were on the Saturn over in Japan that could have possibly made it over here, a lot of them are very similar to this, and a lot of the ones that did come over are mirror images of this. Prime example being things like Albert Odyssey and such.
Yeah, you're right on that. We really didn't see too many of those big budget 3D modern JRPGs other than Panzer Dragoon Saga, which I think was really kind of Sega's comparative to Final Fantasy VII back at that time. Maybe if they had had more games like that come out over here, I don't know if things might have been a little bit different. I mean, they sure would have been for me, but I'm someone who grew up playing JRPGs and is a huge fan of everything that Square did on the PlayStation, so...
Yeah, when I grew up, I never really played a lot of RPGs. Like, I was always like more of a, Pokemon guy, if I did play any RPGs, but most of it was action platformers or something of that effect, or some of the arcade games.
Yeah, and the RPG market itself was nothing like we had in the mid 2000s or the early 2000s. Really, that was the late 90s, early 2000s was the prime time of RPGs. But it was as a direct result of things like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX. Those late releases for the PlayStation, that's really what kicked the RPG market really in the high gear. Like my wife, she played plenty of RPGs on the Super Nintendo, on the PlayStation, but most of her really getting into the RPGs was on the PS2. The PS2 had astronomical levels of RPGs of all kinds. I mean, everything from what we're looking at right now to complete 3D environments such as Final Fantasy 10 and 11, and 12. I mean, there was so many things on the market. You bring in things like Dissidia and Disgaea and all that. I mean, it was an insane time for RPGs, really. But it wasn't at the time of this game. There were RPGs, and you know, Japan just put us to shame whenever it came to that. But Western markets, I don't necessarily. I think we were still more into the whole arcade, and like you just said, we were into platformers, we were into beat 'em ups and stuff like that. I don't think the market for the RPGs. In retrospect, I think we look back and say, "Hey, that was a good. Why didn't we get more RPGs?" But I don't think the market was really as big as we think it might have been. That's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah.
You might be right on that, Sam. I've come to find out that it was kind of strange for people my age. I know Pat and I are the same age, and I was playing RPGs pretty young, and you know, most of my friends, you know, either weren't really interested or had never heard of them before, so I think I might have been an outlier when it came to my own tastes back then.
Yeah, I definitely have. I think one of my biggest issues, though, is I didn't really have RPG systems back in the day. I never owned a PlayStation 1 until 2003, and I never owned a. And most of the systems I had were Dreamcast and Nintendo 64. And while there were a couple on Dreamcast, I mean, for the most part, the N64 really didn't have any besides maybe was it Quest 64?
That, and you had like your Zeldas, of course, which are more action RPGs.
Yeah.
And you have Shadowgate, which is kind of, I mean, a little bit more of an adventure game.
Oh man, you played Shadowgate back in the day?
Yeah, of course.
I love that game. I got lost like halfway through it though, but I think my favorite part of that game was when you escape, when you eat the ham, you choke up the bone, get out there, and you cross it over the water, you fall in, and you hear the guys like, and he just falls in the water. But yeah,
Board Battle 64. That's what Chase Red said. I wasn't an N64 dude, so I mean, we had a little laugh about that earlier this morning with the Titan Cast guys. Everybody was like, you know, take a picture of your N64 collection, and Father K and Brian had loads of N64 stuff, and Nuno had maybe 3 or 4 games and a system, and I took a picture of the floor. That was my N64 collection.
Yeah, I think.
Hey, yeah, I didn't own one back in the day either, so I'm with you. I just played at friends' houses.
Were you a PlayStation girl?
I was 100%. Yep.
Man, I always had friends that were all PlayStation people, so I just go over his house and I play. I remember playing Medieval, Resident Evil 2, Small Soldiers Big. That game was fun. Small Soldiers Big Battle. Any of you guys ever see it for PS1 and get it for cheap? It is so much fun.
If you want to get up into PS1 gaming, especially with the titles that are really getting up there in price, because there are some very, very, very expensive titles for the PlayStation now. I'm talking about like $150 games. There's some games up on the PlayStation that are actually putting some Saturn games to shame, price wise. Get you a 9000 series PlayStation, the old PlayStation 9000 series, I think is what it is, and get hooked up with somebody who does some mod shipping, man.
Why is it which one's the 9000? Is that specifically the fat PS1?
It's one of the later models. Yeah, it's a fat model if I remember right. My serial numbers. The reason you want that one is because it's one of the more. At that point, they had enough revisions to where everything was pretty much where it was going to be, and it was in the best spot it could possibly be for for the old fat model consoles. And basically, it's one of the easiest ways. It's one of the easiest boards to mod. You don't have to worry about a lot of issues. The problem you come into is like with playing backups and such, is that at that point in the game, a lot of games had they had programs on them that could detect if a mod chip was active. So, and we've kind of taken care of that because we have like these phantom chips of sorts. I don't mean phantom as in the Phantom Universal for the Saturn, but now we have chips that basically they'll activate themselves and then deactivate themselves for a certain period of time while the game's loading up and booting up, because the actual games themselves in the loading process can tell if that chip's there. So they have to basically turn themselves off until you're well into the game for a period of time. Prime examples being stuff like SPYRO. SPYRO detects you have a burnt copy of a game. It will be impossible to play that game.
How do
You can play it, but you can't do anything.
like? How do they get around that though? They just they just do the boot thing, turn the mod chip off until the check's done for SPYRO.
The actual chip itself has programming on board to where as soon as it detects that the game is actually booting up, it will turn itself off. It will turn itself off for a period of time, and then it will turn itself back on. It'll basically just allow for a pass through.
Interesting.
I'm not a modder per se. I can mod consoles. I should rephrase that. I am not a programmer, so I'm not going to sit here and even try to understand or explain to you exactly how it works.
That's definitely very interesting, and it seems like a big K question, because I think he did a couple PS1 mods back in the day.
I've done a couple of them, and I know how to do them, very much similar to like the Saturn. I'm one of them guys that I can put stuff together, but I don't necessarily know how all of it works. So long as it works, I'm happy with it.
So it's like working on an engine, you know, to replace this or that, but you don't know specifically what, you know, it would do.
No, I'm a mechanic, so I know what it's going to do.
Well, I meant for example, like someone like me that just replaced a part in a car.
Right. It's like if you're jumping in your car and it doesn't turn over, first thing you ask yourself is, okay, well, do I have gas? If I've got gas, yeah, okay. Well, next thing I know, is there any power coming from the battery? Okay, there's no power coming from the battery. Battery probably needs to be replaced. If there is power, well, maybe my starter. That's kind of how I take a look to electronics.
I gotcha. Fair enough. Yeah, I definitely would like to get more into car stuff, but unfortunately, this isn't a car stream Saturday or Sunday in that case. But we'll have that next week when we do Daytona. No.
Oh my God. Sorry, I went on a tangent there, boys and girls.
Oh no, really interesting.
No, that's a good tangent. Yeah, I actually have I have kind of a sad experience with the mod chip detection that was implemented in some of the later games. I told this story on one of our podcasts, but I was pretty young. I'd say maybe 10, 11 years old, and I don't know if you remember, Sam, these jam-packed demo discs that used to come with the PlayStation Underground magazines?
Yes.
Yeah, you know how they always came with, like, imports
Right.
on them? Like, they'd give you a little sample of Japanese games. Well, there was this cooking game that I absolutely loved playing, and, you know, I decided that I wanted to try to be able to play this game for myself, so, you know, I got my PS1 all set up. I was trying to burn this game at about 10 or 11 years old, not really knowing what I was doing, and I probably went through 15 to 20 discs trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, and here it was because, you know, the game had mod chip detection, and I did not have the stealth mod chip that you're talking about that allowed that, you know, bypass.
Wait, you had a mod chip in your system at like 10 or 11?
Yes, I did not do it. I did not do it. Just to be very clear about that.
There was mod chips for the PlayStation like within the first 2 or 3 years. Very similar to there was mod chips for the Saturn within the first 2 or 3 years. Like the CD-based media presented an opportunity that was not available to cartridge-based media. It was a lot easier to, I mean, granted from China and places that had the infrastructure to do it, to actually, you know, get EEPROMs and put, you know, information on them, put game ROMs and everything on it. That was one thing. But putting CD media was a whole different dynamic. And you had things like copy protection built in with Saturn, with the PlayStation, and you had to find a viable means to get around that. And the gaming community has always been, in my opinion, one of the most tech savvy at how to solve problems. Prime example being the late 90s. Extremely prime example being how long it took people to figure out how to bypass, you know, the security on the Dreamcast. I mean, it was within weeks of the launch that people were burning discs from that.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't underestimate us nerds. I mean, they've done a bunch of different stuff that I'm still surprised of. I mean, not even talking about the thing that I'm using right now to play this, which is that the Raya and the GDEMUs, or Professor Abrasive's, was it the Saturnizers, what he's calling it?
I think that's what he's calling it. It's basically just going to be an SD card reader in the back of the VCD slot, correct?
Pretty much.
I'm really hoping he comes out with that at some point, dude, because they've been talking about that forever.
He's working on it. He got kind of... Wow. Yeah, my card's like getting weird. The upscale is getting really weird.
You gotta smack that baby, man.
That's what I've been doing. But yeah, it should be coming sometime. He said at the end of the year it should be coming out.
I got you.
That's pretty exciting. I know I'm looking forward to that. Not to jump back to PlayStation too many more times, but some of the 1000 models, like the launch models that came with like the parallel I/O port in the back,
right,
you could actually plug in like a Game Shark to that and play burn games just with, no other modification other than having that Game Shark plugged into the back. So later on, Sony like removed that port so people, wouldn't be able to do that anymore. But that's kind of what, Professor Abrasive's project is really appealing to me for that reason. Because, it's this removable device that you can take in and out very easily while still maintaining your disk drive. So, I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on one of those whenever they come out.
Nice. Would you be interested in trying the Raya if that doesn't come out, though?
Yeah, definitely. It's just a matter of figuring out what kind of Saturn I'd like to have that in eventually. I think I'd either like to have a skeleton or a V Saturn. So if that's the case, I'm going to have to, get one of those first and make sure I'm ordering the appropriate ODE for it.
I personally really want to get my white Saturn and put it in that one, because right now it's just in my US oval button Saturn with the 20-pin chip for the Raya.
Right.
I gotcha.
I mean, I could case swap it, but I don't think it would work for the ovals versus the round button setup.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think so either, unfortunately.
What is my card doing?
The thing is like on its last leg, baby. You gotta beat that thing. Are you sure you got your SCART all the way inputted right?
I made sure it is.
Well, I don't know. We're just gonna run with fuzz, baby. It's not much worse than playing an N64 game. I know shots fired. I'm sorry. I shouldn't.
No, I totally agree with you there. I'm not a fan of the Merc that is the N64.
No, I can't. Most games I can't enjoy with it, honestly. Don't worry, Pat. We've had technical issues on my streams before too, where I had to completely reset the frame master. So I mean, okay, it happens, man.
Yeah, yep. No, it just kind of there we go. I got it back, but just kind of annoying.
Oh yeah, I can completely understand, man. I can completely understand.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It just like recently started doing this, and I guess maybe because it was plugged in and turned on like a long time, even though I wasn't using it. Maybe that's probably why.
Yeah, that's never good. That's never good for electronics.
Yeah, that's something to watch out for. I try to unplug mine, but I know I'm bad about it as well. Like, I think right now, yeah, I can see the little light on from where I'm sitting, so yeah, I'm bad about that as well.
Yeah.
I would honestly tell anybody that is using this cart right now, save yourself some time and money, and just go ahead and start saving up like $20, $30 at a time. And as much as I tell people to get the Frame Master, they are no longer in production. And while I look at the Frame Master as a better product, plenty of people love the OSSC, man. Find some way to upscale. If you're going to be playing on HDTV, find some way to upscale. And the OSSC is a plenty good option for people, especially considering the fact that generally speaking, it's half the price of a Frame Master.
Well, actually, the Frame Master, you can still order it from Solaris Japan for the $345, whatever their cost is.
I thought they completely discontinued it with the batch out of December this time. I thought the December batch was it.
No, they still have them on there. Like, you look on Solaris Japan right now, you can still order it.
Dude, I promise you that they've had to have figured somebody else to make them chips out or something, dude, because they were talking almost 2 years ago about completely discontinuing it within 6 months. So either they just found a crate full of chips, or or they've got some kind of backroom deal and ain't told nobody things got fixed.
Yeah, they probably found a way to manufacture them cheaper, and maybe they found a warehouse that has them in surplus, or maybe they just thought, hey, you know, people are still buying this and it's making a lot of money, why stop?
That's exactly right.
Dude, that little furry thing's so cute, the little rabbit.
Oh my god.
Oh god.
It sure is. I love how that's kind of a thing in most magical girl anime. There's always some kind of cute little mascot that helps everybody out.
Yeah, I mean, in Sailor Moon you got, is it Luna, right?
Yep, Luna and Artemis.
Artemis.
It is foretold in
I guess this one they have the rabbit thing. Is there other ones in like other magical girl shows? I really only watch a couple. I'm not like a huge magical girl person.
Yeah, definitely.
Almost every single anime that has any kind of fantasy aspect to it, not just magical girl, normally speaking, it's going to have some kind of talking animal or animal that can transform into a person, or you know, something like that, some kind of cat god, cat person, something going on.
I just like how this card gets darker and darker and darker and darker and darker.
Like going into the pits of hell, man.
Oh my!
We're going down with it.
Damn,
just complete total destruction.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
It's like the game's still there, you just can't see it.
You can hear it fine. Busting that sound.
Oh yeah, man. Sound card's doing perfect. I honestly think you're having I think you're just having some interference, some kind of electrical interference with that card, dude, because that's kind of what it seems like almost.
It's not the card, it's a capture device.
No, it's a capture device?
It's not the capture device, the upscaler box.
That's what I'm talking about. It's
yeah.
like your upscaler box is having some kind of electrical interference going on with it.
Yeah, the interference is that it was made like ass.
You know what? I'm not even going to disagree with you on that one.
That's the programming interference. It's just awful.
It wants you to see the colors of the rainbow, man.
You know, I've heard of a lot of people that buy these little boxes and they don't even work. Like, they're just dead on arrival. I feel lucky that I own one that even works and, you know, does up-convert to RGB. I've had several people tell me that they've ordered them and they cannot get an RGB signal out of these to save their lives. So,
well,
we're getting plenty of red right now.
Yeah.
You gotta roll with the punches, man. Is it really about the gameplay, or are you here to hear us? That's the question you gotta ask yourself.
I'm pretty sure they would appreciate it if the gameplay was a single color.
I was just trying to, like, you know, throw it out there, give the dog the bone, you know.
I gotcha. Well, I mean, they're probably enjoying it. I mean, this is kind of funny. Just it's a demonstration on why you should never buy this.
That's exactly right. Product placement for the OSSC and FrameMeister all day.
Yeah, but yeah, to be honest, one of the reasons I went with the FrameMeister is just because it has a better compatibility. And I mean, if I was playing games, I might get the OSSC, but I only do this for streaming stuff. So, and I think it's an excellent streaming device and works with almost every card.
The only issue that you will have with the FrameMeister in regards to streaming and or gaming is that the FrameMeister does not like 480i to 240p. It does not like 480i to 480p, even though that's extremely rare. So, and that's one thing I have to deal with on my streams, is that during the 32-bit era, especially with the PlayStation and the Saturn, there is a huge habit of games being 240p in gameplay and 480i on the menus, or 480i in the gameplay and 240p in the menus. So you have like prime example, Resident Evil. As soon as you go into the menu, as soon as you go into the menu, you're going to have like an extra 2 or 3 second delay, because the FrameMeister is having to reprocess it and figure out, oh, this isn't 240p anymore, this is 480i.
Gotcha. So does anybody know how to use the magical powers to heal?
Facebook will not be your friend.
Damn it. I know there's a way to do magical shots and stuff. Shots.
Oh, by the way, this is anime news. Pacific Rim has has a Gundam Easter egg in it for all of my fellow mecha otakus.
Oh, you watched the movie?
No, I have not watched the movie yet because I'm sitting here streaming with you and watching my daughter.
Well, I
this
mean, it
morning,
came out
but I
on
will
Friday.
watch-
I mean,
No, I'm literally like looking at my newsfeed right now on Google.
oh, cool. What is the Easter egg, or is it very spoilerish?
I don't want to look at it because I don't want to spoil it for myself.
Okay,
so if
well, we
you
won't
want,
spoil it.
Yeah, if you want to look into it, just type in Pacific Rim Uprising has a Gundam Easter egg, and I'm sure it'll probably be the top thing on Google. It's from CBR.com, which is probably some kind of, trolling something or another. It doesn't matter.
No, it's a comic book reader. It's a famous website. It's pretty famous.
Dude, I've never seen it. That is like the first time I've ever seen it. Seriously.
Really?
Dude, I've never seen that. Ever.
Gotcha.
That makes me really feel bad right now because I don't know something that's really, really popular.
That's pretty cool,
I don't know
though.
it either, Sam, if it makes you feel any better.
Unpopular people, unite.
To be fair, though,
Losers.
I'm a big comic book guy, so.
Yeah, I'm a big manga guy, so.
Uh-oh, here comes Green Hat Hair Boy.
Oh, man. Alright, so. I know we kind of got derailed on the topics of anime and such because we were totally talking about, PlayStations and such on a Sega Saturn stream.
Well, I mean, we were talking about my device, like, dying as in progress.
Well, that's just kind of an anime trope unto itself, dude. We have to talk about how it's going to die and reborn and be reborn and such.
Oh, it's gonna be reborn, alright. Reborn right into the dump, right into my trash can.
No, dude, you gotta like set it ablaze, man. Set it ablaze.
Yeah,
Give it a ceremonial kind of sending away.
I'm pretty sure my HOA would love that.
She's going like, and blow it up. That was my worst version of trying to do that howl sound. For everybody who's watching anime knows what I'm talking about, like Tenchi Muyo and shit.
I'll dress up as Sailor Moon and do the whole transformation thing, and then yell at it, in the name of the moon, I will punish you, and just step on it.
You do that, man. You do that, man.
Transform that little HD box right into a frame meister.
That's right, baby.
If only. If only I could get my
um,
hands on a frame meister, that'd be great. But until
No,
then,
I was gonna actually ask y'all what was your favorite favorite anime genres. Since y'all invited me to the stream, I figured I'd ask y'all a question.
alright, so do you want to go first, Claire?
Sure. I was really into Magical Girl series growing up. My favorite anime ever is probably Revolutionary Girl Utena, which we have a wonderful visual novel for that is now English translated on the Saturn.
And guess what's on our list to play soon?
Yep, we're gonna be doing some dating sims. So
Oh my
if you
god.
guys like Revolutionary Girl Utena, you like visual novels, stay with us for our next few streams and you'll see us working through that. But yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of that genre. These days I tend more toward drama series and kind of slice of life stuff. I do a lot of watching Love Live, and I actually play the Love Live School Idol Festival mobile game. So, any kind of music anime or anything, that's just kind of about school life. That's sort of what I'm into these days. What about you, Pat?
I think one of my favorite genres is the really mystery, so like Death Note and Detective Conan. I think that's one of my favorites, and one of my favorite anime is actually the reason why I like Detective Conan is it actually got me back into anime. I just think it was so interesting that it wasn't like there's no like typical anime tropes. It was just like a episode of CSI except with a weird premise of a 5-year-old solving murders.
That's about right.
Yeah,
That's about right.
but I love that genre, and just sort of action adventure is always fun. I guess one of my favorite what was that the one where it's like the shonen animes? I think those are some of my favorites, like JoJo, Dragon Ball Z.
All right, I got you there. How about you, Sam? I mean, we know that you like mecha quite a bit.
Yeah, my favorite genres, there's two of them. They work very well hand in hand together. That is mecha and that is sci-fi. And those two are not synonymous with each other. because you can have mecha and fantasy. Prime example being Escaflowne. So there are anything that falls in those two categories. I am generally going to watch it immediately. However, in the past 5 or 6 years, I have really got involved with series that are kind of like I remember most people that are anime fans will probably remember this. That was High School of the Dead. That was a very, very awesome show. There was another one that's got a Japanese name to it right now. It's about basically a zombie outbreak in feudal Japan that occurs, and basically what's going on is that everybody lives in these cities that are walled off from each other, and you have to use trains to get in between the cities. And the name is completely passing me up. It came out like last year. My wife bought the Blu-ray of it just a couple of weeks ago, and it's actually got English in it. That's another thing, is I prefer to watch anime with English voices. I really don't like reading my anime. That's probably got to do with the fact that I like more fast-paced, action-driven anime, and I don't like having to look down at the screen to see what the words are while people are kicking ass and taking names.
You're a dub guy then?
I have always been a dub guy, and that's probably got to do with the fact that my first interaction with anime was dubbed. It wasn't until, I want to say 1998, my buddy, his brother was big into anime, and he had a VHS copy of Akira. And I say Akira, I don't say Akira. So, go ahead and crucify me right now.
Well, I mean, it's named after Akira Toriyama, the guy that made Dragon Ball Z.
Right, but regardless, I'm not gonna go down that path. But that VHS was only in English subtitle, and to give you an idea of this, that put me off that movie so bad that I did not return to it until 2 years later when I bought the DVD. Like whenever I bought the DVD and it had the option to have English language. Like I honestly do not care how bad a dub is. So long as I can understand what they're saying, I'm going to want to listen to it with English voices. Because for me personally, having to go down there and read, and it might be boring, some people might say it's lazy, but I'll just be honest with you. When I watch TV, I don't want to have to read. I want to just watch the TV. Whenever I read a manga, it's not like there's Japanese on there, and then at the very bottom of the page, it's got the English in a couple of lines. The English is right there in front of your face. That's kind of how my mindset is with anime. I want to be able to know what's going on just by watching the TV. I don't want to have my eyes on the screen the whole time, because sometimes some animes are very slow paced, and I can walk away for a minute or two and still be listening to the dialogue for those anime that aren't so action packed. It's kind of like what you're talking about with mystery, to where you can kind of listen to the dialogue and the narrative and kind of see and stay in touch with everything. You can't do that if it's got subtitles, man. You got to be watching the screen the entire time, or you got to pause it. But
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
What were you saying? What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that's a valid reason for not really caring for the Japanese voices. You definitely have to pay attention to what's written at the bottom of the screen, and when you're doing that, you can't really get the full effect of what's happening visually as far as the actual anime. So, I definitely understand that. For me, I'm actually the opposite, especially when it comes to video games. If there's a Japanese voice track option, I will almost always turn it on. And one of the games that I think really got me into having that preference is Panzer Dragoon Saga. I really enjoyed how the Japanese voices sounded, and I feel like the game might have had a different tone to it had it been dubbed over here. So, whenever I go to play JRPGs like Magic Knight Rayearth, I'm always looking to see if there's an undubbed version available for download that I can burn to a disc and pop in and play with those Japanese voices with the English text.
And you're not the first person I've heard about that. There's lots of people, prime example, Shenmue, who like the Japanese audio track for the voices. I don't know how much younger you are from me, Claire, but whenever I was in college, I was in an anime club, and I was a secretary of the club. Surprise, surprise! There, a freaking anime otaku and
nerd
was in an anime club. I know, right? Regardless, I was the most awesome punk looking, anime nerd you'd ever met, and I did not fit in with most of my contemporaries in that club. Regardless, though, my point is that we literally had to create a whole new anime club, because whenever I came into the university, me and a whole bunch of other people who came in were of the same opinion I was, that we did not want to watch anime with Japanese subtitles. Now, I was at that age where the people who were a little bit older than me, they were coming into anime back whenever the only way you could watch it was with Japanese subtitles. It was like all VHS, mail order or go to a convention to get it. So,
You know what's really cool about that, though, Sam, is that a lot of those VHSs are actually ripped directly from the laser discs.
yes.
And they're subtitled. They're fans. That's why I love the '90s anime stuff the best. Is that it was so lo-fi, where it's literally people using a subtitler and ripping anime laser discs from Japan.
Yep. No. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But what I was kind of getting to is that the older group, the juniors and the seniors, they were, of the mindset that if you were going to watch anime, it had to be subtitled. There was you couldn't put English on it. It took away from the culture. It took away from what you were watching, and it got so heated within like 3 months of school starting and the club starting, and basically what happened was all the juniors and the seniors went and made a new anime club because we took over their club and made it to where everything, if it had a dub, it was going to play dubbed. And it was insane.
I kind of disagree with you having to watch only the dubbed. I think the subtitle is really good for some versions of anime, especially when you compare and contrast to an English dub.
Well, I mean, remember, like I said, most of the people that were my age grew up on English dubbed animes. And this topic's always gone back and forth 1,000 times, and it's never going to have an answer to it. Some people say it's best to watch things subtitles. Some people say it's best to watch them dubbed. Some people, like you just said, some animes are better one way or the other. I think the reason why we did it the way we did it was because of the fact that we grew up with dubbed animes. Prime example, Chase just said it, Cowboy Bebop. Those series were presented to us with an English dialogue first. And that was one of the prime examples. Whenever we went to watch it, it wasn't that series, it was another series. What was it called? Brain just went blank there. Regardless, though, it was a series that had come out in America already with an English dub track to it, and they wanted to watch it subtitled, and nobody there, including myself, that I talked to after the fact, actually enjoyed even watching it, because it was so much different narratively. Like, the subtitles don't match up with what we remember was being said. The emotion that was given off by the voice actors, it was completely different. And that's probably got a lot to do with why we were pushing so hard to have dubs. Now, granted, that only lasted like 2 years before the next group of people came in who was the exact opposite of us. Everything had to be subtitled.
Looks like that night's stealing my waifu. I don't like this at all.
Oh, Lord mercy. But yeah, that's some of them. Like, you're gonna have those arguments in the anime community. Like, I don't think those arguments are ever gonna fit. Ever gonna cease. And prime example, like Amazon Prime and Hulu and everything now, the vast majority of everything that comes over here, unless you're actually paying Funimation like I do to watch it, you're gonna have to watch it as a subtitled show. Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, and actually, I had the same issue with the dub with the case closed. I loved the voice acting in it because I think it fit almost all the characters perfectly. But the thing that annoyed me was that they changed the characters' names in it. So instead of Ron Mori, it was Rachel Moore, and I think it was I can't remember what the detective's name is in the Japanese version, but in other one it was Richard Moore. It's like Shinji Kudo was actually Jimmy Kudo, and they changed a lot of it around and Americanized a lot of it. But
yeah, and that was very common back then.
Well, the thing is that it was like the last ones. It was like 2003 that they released it, so I always thought that was kind of weird that they still did that. But the thing is that I really loved it. But the thing is that they only stopped after 120 episodes. But the thing is that the show is about 900 episodes long. So eventually I'm going to have to watch the subtitle to actually watch the rest of the anime. Which kind of bums me out, but, you know, I just bit the bullet and watched the sub, and I'm actually really enjoying it.
You know, I give you much respect, dude, because that's one of the main reasons I have always steered clear of shonen anime, like, you know, the Dragon Balls, like, I mean, what you just said right there, case closed. I was honestly thinking Yu Yu Hakusho was going to turn into one. My wife absolutely loves Bleach. I cannot stay invested in a series that long. Once it hits about the only series that I can honestly say that I really stayed invested with that was longer than 50 or so episodes was dude, I'm trying to remember the actual American name of it. Heroes of the Galaxy basically is what it basically translates to. What is it called? Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Legends of the Galactic Heroes. If you've never watched that, it is a very slow-paced anime. Very slow-paced. It was started in the 80s and lasted until the late 90s, early 2000s. It runs like 150 episodes, and they made it in like 12 episode blocks. And the thing that's really cool about that series is that it takes place, like the way they were drawing it to begin with, they intentionally kept that same art style all the way until the late 90s, early 2000s. Like they intentionally made it look the same, even though the quality of anime, the quality of how they were doing things, everybody was moving to digital, and they intentionally kept it that way the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah, that is super cool. I've seen a few episodes of that. I've obviously not gotten as far as you, but I really appreciated the aesthetic that kind of carried through the episodes that I did see.
Yeah, it's it's got an OVA series to it, and I mean it is an extremely deep anime that is very much based on narrative. It's not based on action. It's set way off in the future. It's feudalistic empires. It's got a lot of Nazi tropes to it. It's a very interesting story that really makes you think about, you know, how the world works and how it should work. Like, and honestly, that's how most animes I appreciate are. They're either just mindless fun, or they have to be extremely insightful, extremely in-depth. And that's one of them that falls in that. You've really got to pay attention and really start asking yourself some questions.
And you know, I think that whole anime thing where it's like serious or not serious, I think one of my favorite examples of that is Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh my god.
Because I mean, there is some deep stuff in it, but a lot of it is just, you know, silly fun.
It's fan service.
Yeah, a lot of fan service. And I think that's
Don't
probably...
be hating on my Eva, man.
No, I love Eva. It's my favorite anime series of all time.
I'm right there with you, man. Right there with you. I've got it in every format you could think of. I've got the model kits. I've got the games. I've got the manga. I've got the DVDs, multiple versions. I'm right there with you, man.
Yeah,
I'm there with you guys as well. I really enjoyed that. I haven't seen, you know, some of the newer continuations, but I'm talking the original. I absolutely love it.
Dude, when I first went to college, my book bag is literally, and I still have it. I can take a picture of it here in a second, put it in the chat. I literally have a book bag that says Nerve. It has the emblem on it, and that was back when I went to college.
You know, I was actually at a job fair, and some guy, I actually met a guy waiting in line to talk to somebody with a Nerve sticker on the back. I was like, "Hey man, you waiting for Third Impact?" And he didn't understand me before. He was from China. So he had a hard time with English, but it was really cool that, you know, we like the same thing. We loved Eva, we loved, you know, Case Clo or Detective Conan, we loved, you know, Dragon Ball, and it was really cool. And we were just chatting about it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's really cool." I was like, "Are you an otaku?" I was like, "Oh no, I'm not. That's not me."
Denial.
I am an otaku. I'm not a weeboo though.
You know what? I might be, to be quite honest.
What would be the differentiator between being an otaku and a weeboo? I know, like, back when I was growing up, an otaku was somebody who was invested in the culture, who appreciated it, who had a lot of anime, who read manga, etc., etc. But like, what's different between that and a weeboo, really?
Well, I mean, one of them is obsessed with Japanese culture, the other one's obsessed with anime. I think is the biggest difference.
A weeboo would be what?
basically somebody that's obsessed with Japanese culture. Like, oh, I want to be Japanese, move to Japan. I want to learn Japanese. I want to become Japanese.
Yeah, I'm not turning Japanese. I'm not turning Japanese, yo. I'm gonna.
You definitely don't think so.
Yeah, and there's a much more negative connotation, I think, for weebos than there are for otakus.
I just think back to that video that's been going across the net for like the past year. It's like, you know, I'd have to find it. It's the Weeboo anime rock song. You know what I'm talking about? Made by that group that did the oh my god, I gotta pull it up now. Hold on.
Killer, yeah, shooter.
Technical keyboard.
But yeah, Pat, I liked your story about seeing that guy that had the nerve thing on him.
Yeah.
I have a bag, and on my bag I actually have a Panzer Dragoon pin, and I have a little Love Live keychain, and I'm always hoping that someone will notice one of those two things, and so far it just hasn't happened.
You know, the guy actually had a Love Live sticker as well, and we were talking
Awesome,
to that too.
awesome.
And I was like, yeah, you like Snow Halation? I was like, yeah, man, it's a great song.
Rock out the Snow Halation.
To be honest, that's
just
like the only
posted
song
that.
I like from that.
Yeah, I just posted that up in the chat for the video. The Weeboo metal. That's like all I think about when I think about Weeboo.
I gotcha. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, I used to not be really big into it, I guess, for those negative connotations. But I don't know. Like, when I watched Case Closed, it just really sunk me into it and really made me want to get back into it. Because I just think it's like I always was worried. Oh, it's the silly cult, the silly, you know, fan service, the mini skirts with girls. But when I watched Case Closed, it was like, oh wow, it's like, you know, it's not like that at all. It's like this different type, and that's why I loved it so much. And I could just sit there for hours and watch it.
Well, you know, me and my wife really enjoy Japanese culture. Like, if you look at any of my videos on YouTube, I mean, there's a Japanese shrine right behind my head every single time. I mean, we do enjoy the culture. I wouldn't consider us weeboos by any chance, but did I tell you, Pat, about how I was out of like 32,000 people who entered it, I made it down to the last 1,000 people for me and my wife to get a $10,000 all expenses paid vacation to Japan for a week.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. What exactly was that contest?
Oh crap! I'd have to look it up. It was through Crunchyroll. That's who it was through. It was through Crunchyroll. I think it was through Crunchyroll. I'm pretty sure it was. But we were I got notified that we were in the 10,000 people. We had made it to that drawing, and then I got notified, okay, you're in the 1,000-person drawing.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my god, because after that it was going to be 100 people, and then it was going to be, you know, a pick. So I was only, you know, 2 more steps away from winning it. And I almost didn't tell my wife because I was wanting it to be a surprise if we won or not say anything, you know, and ended up telling her, and like literally the next day found out that we didn't get picked. And I was just complete, because me and my wife have always wanted to go to Japan, me for anime and games, and on top of that the food, and my wife, my wife pretty much would probably be considered a weeboo.
You know, it's always good to find somebody you have similar hobbies with, so that way when you move in with all your games and stuff, it's not like they're gonna like think badly of you. It's like, oh, what do you have all that crap for?
Oh, my wife is most certainly like, that was one of the main things that we had in common to begin with, was anime and gaming. Like, I mean, we met each other back in high school, and there was a span of a couple of years where we didn't talk to each other. It's more than a couple of years, actually. But regardless, whenever we did get back to talking to each other, that's kind of where our conversation started, was what we were interested in. And she remembered I was interested in anime from back when, and I remember she was interested in gaming back then. And that was kind of how our conversations got started. And to be honest with you, whenever she moved into my house, like half of her stuff was gaming and anime related. She was huge into Guitar Hero. She was huge into anime. She had like 45 wall scrolls. I mean, it is just ridiculous, dude. I mean, it even blew me out of the water in comparison to some aspects. But yeah, we're pretty much on the same page.
Life goals.
That's right,
Yep,
baby.
for sure.
Man, yeah, I definitely hopefully one day I could find somebody like that as well. Just more just like accepting each other's hobbies and stuff. Because I know that's really difficult. And I mean, is there any limits that you guys have hobby-wise or something where it's like, okay, I got to draw the line?
I don't know, like, I really don't know, because I mean, my wife does, typical girly things, I guess you could say, like, sewing and crocheting and stuff like that, and she's a really big artist. But I mean, there's never really been a conflict of our hobbies per se. Like, there's never really been any kind of conflict. I mean, she has her. I think this is probably the best advice I can give anybody in a relationship or anybody trying to get into a relationship. You have to understand that while it is 100% on both people's parts, you have to allow that person to have their space, and they have to allow you to have your space, because otherwise you're just gonna get tired of being around each other. It doesn't matter how much you love each other. Once you've been together for a couple of years, you gotta have time to just decompress on your own.
Exactly. So I mean, that's really you need to have. I mean, it's good to be together, but I mean, you gotta have that breathing room, right?
Exactly. Because I mean, it's like I like going out to the gun range. I like building stuff. I like working on stuff. I like going out and having coffee with my friends. My wife likes, sitting there and watching her anime that's completely subtitled, and she knows I'm not going to watch with her. And she likes playing her RPGs. On top of that, I like coming back to my man cave /den /production office /live streaming everything. Everything happens in here, and playing my games. So, I mean, we have that. And on top of that, we have our daughter now, so we get to really enjoy spending time with her and doing things with her. Like going out with her, we're working on the backyard right now. I mean, my daughter's just now about to be, she's a little more than a year and a half old now. So she's able to run around the yard and everything. And we're working on getting the backyard kind of built up. We got her a playhouse. We're leveling off stuff. We're trying to make her a little garden and everything. I mean, you find ways to spend time with each other besides just, hobbies like back whenever we were teenagers and such.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so-
that is very cool, Sam. Clearly, the Miles family is goals.
That the Miles family rocks.
Gotcha, guys. All right, so I think we're at a pretty good stopping point right now for this. Do you guys want to continue for a little bit longer, or probably hold it off for the next episode next Saturday?
It's up to you, man.
Yep, I'm good with whatever.
I gotcha. Yeah. Why don't we keep going? We'll see how far we can get in another hour or so.
Can you
Alright, sounds good.
Can you save at any time?
Yeah. So
Oh,
I'll
okay.
save right now, actually. There we go. Save done.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice feature of this game. The one thing that I don't miss about older RPGs are save points.
Right.
So, nice that you're kind of able to do that in here whenever you need to.
I gotcha.
I like this kind of overworld thing. That's one thing I really liked about the RPGs back then was you had that whole overworld mechanic to it. So you had basically you had your townships and areas, and you had your dungeons and areas. And I mean, that's how the games were back then. But I really enjoyed it because it gave you a break from the combat, kind of. Because I mean, a lot of the open world RPGs we have now, yeah, you have safe areas. You have that, reprieve of sorts, but whenever it comes to the overworld, you're having, you got this huge, lush area to work with, but you've got to go through it yourself. You got to tackle it all yourself.
Yeah, I know what you mean there. I really miss overworld maps, like, especially some of the ones that we saw in the Square games on the PS1, like those 3D maps we had in Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. I really enjoyed that. I don't even really know what it was. I guess it made the game feel really big. And that kind of sounds weird to say, nowadays when we have these massive open world games. But something about that overworld map was just really enjoyable for me. I loved adventuring around there and just kind of traveling to the different continents and whatnot.
Yeah, if you guys like stuff like that, you should play Bravely Default. I mean, they have that same overworld map for the 3DS.
Yeah, how is that game? I've been really interested in that, and I haven't had the chance to pick it up yet.
It's really fun. It's like a classic Final. It has the same classic Final Fantasy feeling. It's really fun. You don't even have to have the 3D on. I turn it off personally. But
doesn't that game have the job system like a lot of the Final Fantasies did?
yeah, it does, and it's really cool because you can put it on different people, and they change their costumes up. You can even switch it mid game. So maybe you want Till to be a mage, or maybe you want him to be a swordsman, and I think that's what's really cool about it. You can diversify of what your character does.
I've really been wanting to. I know it's a little bit late to the party, but I've really been wanting to pick up Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age. I'm really interested in seeing how that game plays with the whole job, like the new system that they're bringing. Well, it's not really the new system; it was the Japanese system. But have either one of y'all picked up that game yet?
I have. I have it for the PC, and it is worth it. I mean, obviously the presentation graphically is very beautiful with the nice upscaling that they did on everything. But the job system is super cool. I kind of like having more direction in that sense, because the original, you were really kind of free to do what you wanted with that license system. You could just, take whatever character in whatever direction, and that was kind of cool in itself. But I actually kind of, was enjoying the more structured job system where you had these designated roles for characters. I think it totally changed the way that I built my party.
Right, and I was doing the exact. Just the other day, probably about maybe a month ago, I was playing. We've got the collector's edition for the PS2, and I was playing it, and I was intending to beat the game, and then I was intending to buy the PS4 Zodiac Age, and I was going to play through it back to back and see how it played. That kind of got side railed with a couple of projects, so I'm kind of have that on the back burner. At some point, I'm gonna have to get back on that though, because I'm really interested in just, I don't know, there's something about, I want to play the games back to back, not just from a graphical point of view, but gameplay wise, something between the license system and going to the job system, seeing how different gameplay wise I can get things going, basically.
Yeah, I highly recommend it for sure. I think it's definitely worth the money and worth the time put in to take it through a second time, kind of with a different take on things.
Whoa.
Because my wife tried to get me in Final Fantasy 15, and I couldn't get very far up in that game. I just got burnt out up on that game real fast.
What was it that kind of turned you off?
It was Final Fantasy 13. That's what turned him off.
No, I actually kind of enjoyed Final Fantasy 13. I don't mind the real time. The problem with it was just like the opening of the game is a prime example. Okay, so I watched all the anime and the DVDs, and we got the special edition, and we watched all that. So I knew parts of what the story was before the game ever started. But whenever I opened up the game, the very first thing I practically have to do is push this damn car to a gas station. That is not a good way to start an RPG.
Oh, you're talking about 15. I think you meant 13.
15. No, 15.
Like
I said, though, the first hour of the game is the most critical for me. And the first hour of that game, I had literally maybe gotten to 3 fights up until that point, and I was doing a whole bunch of side quests. And side quests are cool, but it's not they weren't the side quests I expected for a Final Fantasy game. And I think that I picked that up right after I had just got done 100%ing Horizon Zero Dawn, I believe, and I think I was still in that mindset from Horizon. So I don't know, I might come back to it later on, but at the time I just really wasn't digging it.
You know what? I heard the similar things about 15, is that it was really not as great as people were hyping it up to be. I mean, my friends are all like freaks about it, and I mean, my friend just like won't shut up about Noctis being in Tekken, and I was kind of bummed because like my favorite character of all time, Geese Howard, was in it, but it's like, oh no, it doesn't matter. It's all about Noctis, and it's like, come on, man, really?
I think that there was no way that game was going to live up to the hype. I mean, come on now, how many years has that been going on?
Yeah.
Oh my, I remember back in the generation before it, I actually chose to buy a PS3 in anticipation for Final Fantasy Versus 13 that was supposed to come out. I mean, and then here we are today. I mean, gosh, that was, I want to say it was 2006 that it was first announced. And
E3 2006, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Oh man,
So,
I can't
you know,
get past
I
this.
feel similarly, Pat. It really didn't have a chance to live up to the hype, being stuck in development that long and changing direction too. I mean, the characters, like some of the characters that were announced, ended up being completely rewritten. And it's kind of disappointing because I was really interested in some of the designs. Like I was really feeling Noctis's character design, but I guess it just, you know, like you said, there was no way that it could really live up to the expectations that had been set for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever saw it, like gameplay wise, not the whole idea behind it seems so much more fast paced than it actually ended up being. Because even though it was real time, and you had the ability to just fly across the map, literally in a car if you really wanted to, if you beat the game. Because my wife did, she showed me. But it just, the gameplay seems so slow sometimes. I expected almost like hack 'em slash Final Fantasy, you know, just furious combat all the time whenever you got up into it. I expected for, you know, enemies to be able to, you know, I didn't expect what was in the game where, yeah, I could see the enemies and they're there, or what I expected was I could maneuver around enemies, but they were smart enough to come chase me. I mean, that's kind of what it was not what I expected it to be. And it falls back to the fact I've been seeing this game for like 8 years. I've been seeing what it was supposed to be for like 8 years, and it's changed constantly, so I don't even know what to expect.
Right, right. I definitely feel you on that one. I think it, you know, probably confused a lot of people who had been following it from the beginning. I know that the female lead, Luna, was originally named Stella, and she had quite a different role, I think, in Noctis's life, as well as the overarching story, so I was pretty confused, you know, when they went switching that up.
Yeah, I mean, I really wish I could give more insight into it. I never played it much. I mean, I played it for a little bit, but, you know, I just stopped.
Yeah, I can't blame you there.
I plan on getting back into it one day. I mean, we own the collector's edition of it. You know, much like a lot of those types of games, my wife always wants to get the collector's edition, and I'm happy for that, because I mean, we've got a very beautiful collection in that regards. Eventually, I'm gonna get back to it though. I've just got so much crap on the back burner, so much stuff on the backlog. I mean, there's games from the PS1 I have on the backlog that I've had for 4 or 5 years that I've yet to play.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. This is the reason I started the stream, is that I can play some of these games. Like, I just have such a big backlog, and I haven't played any of these classic RPGs. So
I will say this though, if you haven't realized it yet, Pat, playing a game on stream and actually sitting down and enjoying it by yourself are two different things entirely.
You know what? I kind of disagree. I mean, I've been finding this to be very interesting, and I can still focus and concentrate on this game. I'm really enjoying it so far.
I am very happy you fall in that block, because whenever I'm streaming, dude, I am either talking or I am playing, and if whatever I'm doing, the opposite of that is just a cluster. Like whenever we were playing Die Hard Arcade, I kept missing the QTEs because I was trying to figure out what to talk about with y'all, or trying to respond to one of y'all, and not paying attention whatsoever to the screen.
Oh, dang it. You can hit by that thing. Yeah,
I think I fall into that category as well. I'm not great at multitasking, so I don't think I'd be a great streamer as far as being able to actually like do well at what I was playing and hold a conversation.
Well, if you know, whenever I'm streaming by myself, it's not that big a deal, because I'm talking to myself. I'm talking out my thoughts, you know, and I can talk kind of to the chat whenever I get up into a spot where I'm kind of, you know, calm down. You know, I actually enjoy it that way. But whenever I have the couch full of people with me side by side, even back whenever there was a couch of real people sitting beside me and I'm trying to play the game and they're all talking smack to me, I was still never good at playing the game and trying to come back. I mean, either I had to tune everybody out or I had to play the game. It's just, I don't know. That might just be a me thing, because I haven't really been able to enjoy a lot. I shouldn't say enjoy. I haven't really been able to get invested in the games that we've been playing on stream while I've been having 4 or 5 people talk to me at the same time. But I really enjoy having those people talk to me, so it doesn't much matter.
Yeah, I definitely like the fact that you guys can help me pick up the slack, and it's like when I have to focus on a thing, I just have you guys talk, and while I might not be able to talk 100%, I can still focus on this game and talk to you guys once it's like at a slow point.
Right.
Yep. Hey, I'm gonna address the comments real quick. I see Chase is here saying that he's trying to play Suikoden 2 right now, but he's getting kind of bored of it. Have you guys ever played anything from that series?
Yes, and that is one of the more boring games, I have to admit. That is one of the more boring games, Chase. And just like, have you played any of the ones after that? Have you played 3, 4? Have you played any of that? Of course, it's going to take 30 seconds probably for him to figure out that I talked to him. It's not really necessary story-wise. I mean, it is. I mean, it is to a certain extent. But I mean, you could always just like, do a README, try to figure out what's going on with it. But I really think that's one of the more hard to get invested to games. Just that series in general. My wife loves it though.
Yeah, I had the chance to start a little bit of the first game, and that's another one that kind of got pushed on the back burner and I haven't made it back to for years. And it wasn't because I was disinterested or anything like that. It was just, I guess at the time I had other stuff going on, and you know how it is. You pick up a new game and then you get going on that, and you walk away with this partially finished game. So I'm gonna have to think about restarting that sometime in the near future.
To be honest, guys, I am just like noobed out on. I'm like the biggest noob when it comes to all these RPGs. I never heard of a lot of these ones. Like, I didn't even heard of the Lunar series until I really, I got into this retro gaming thing.
Oh my god, Lunar was the shit back in the day, dude.
Like, I don't know. Like I said, I was a Nintendo guy, and all these Nintendo games didn't have these, these games on, all these RPGs and all these cool things. I mean, I didn't get a PlayStation till years later. So I'm like out of the loop, and the only way I learned about this stuff is through, these guys talking about it.
Right. Now, Chase, if you're already 20 hours in and you were bored 10 hours in on the first one and 20 hours in on the second one, there's a good possibility you're just not going to enjoy that series. That's one of the bad things about RPGs, man. Not every RPG is made the same. Certain RPGs really bring into it narrative aspects, some of them gameplay aspects, how you work around things, how you solve problems, etc., etc. And that might honestly just be one of those games that you don't get invested into, especially if you didn't finish the first one. I really don't see how you're gonna. If you didn't finish the first one, I really honestly don't think you'll get through the second one. That's the cold hard honest facts.
Coolio got healed up.
Because like whenever I played it back in the day, I didn't like it. I like it today. My wife loved it. That's pretty much the only reason I bought it, was because I was getting it for her for a gift, because she had been talking about it a couple of days earlier, and I saw it at the local game store. This was a couple of years back, but I played it after the fact, and I was like, oh my god, what was I missing? And I don't know, different mind, different perspective. I don't know what it was, but I enjoy it today. But if you've already made it that far into that game, dude, and you're bored, my best advice to you is just sit it down, dude. Don't power through it. You're not going to enjoy it at all.
And I definitely agree with Sam. I mean, if you're not enjoying it now, and it's like 20 hours, 15 hours in, you're probably not going to enjoy it later. And it's not nothing about you as a person or you as a gamer. It's just that I mean, maybe it's just not your type of game, and that's not ever a bad thing.
Dude, I stand behind it. If you give an hour of your life to a game and you're not liking it, dude, put it down.
Well, I would disagree on the hour. I mean, he's like 10 hours in. I mean, I like it at least 2 or 3 hours. Because sometimes the game is kind of slow when it starts out.
I mean, I'm not saying it isn't, but I mean, to me, if it doesn't keep my interest in the first hour, let me put it this way: if it doesn't keep my interest in the first hour, then why am I going to continue giving it more hours of my life, hoping that it's going to give me something better? Because generally, your main points are laid out in the first hour of the game. Your main mechanisms, the main plot of some kind, at least the narrative of some sort is going to be presented to you. And I'll be honest with you, if a game developer wants to wait until you're 10 hours into a game to actually make the game enjoyable, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna make it that far. I don't sell any of my games. I keep all of my games. There's 2 games I've ever traded in or sold to somebody. But there's a lot of games up there that probably haven't played in over a decade because of that very reason. I bought them, didn't like them, and a lot of the reason I say an hour today is because of the huge amount of games I played so far. And I mean, dude, it's like I've given games like Chase has already 10, 15 hours of life and just been completely disappointed after that 10, 15 hours. You know, where I felt the exact same 2 hours in as I did 15 hours in.
Yeah. You know, I agree with you guys there. If you're not liking it, then don't make a job out of it. I mean, we play games to have fun. That's the most important thing here. And, you know, if you don't enjoy it, you can always put it down and think about coming back to it later in life. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I mean, Sam, you mentioned that you had this experience, but there have been some games that I did not enjoy at all when I played them earlier in my life. And now that I've come back to them at a different place, I've had a completely different experience. So, you know, it's always worth, you know, putting it on hold if it's something you really want to do, but you're not feeling it at that moment. It's possible that you might later on.
Exactly.
Definitely. I mean, I can't count how many times it's happened to me, especially with the RPG genre. It's like, well, I don't like this game. And it's like, I go back years later and it's like, oh man, this game's amazing. What the hell was I thinking?
Right. I think the biggest example of that for me was Vagrant Story on the PS1. I tried to play that game when I was pretty young, you know, 11, 12 years old, and I think I was just simply not really mature enough to, first off, understand what was going on as far as the complex, like, weapon system and everything with that, but I also didn't really appreciate the story at that time. But when I came back to it as an adult, it's now definitely in my top list of RPGs. So
how long is this game? Because obviously I've never beat it. I mean, any idea on how long you as Patrick holds the wall for dear life here?
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's around like 10 to 15 hours, I want to say.
That's pretty short, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, for back then, that was pretty short. Back then, I mean, most of those games are like 20, 40 hours you were going to put into it.
Right. It's kind of another Panzer Dragoon saga, really. That game was fairly short as well, so another short one here in Magic Knight.
You say that until you look at my progress in the stream. I mean, it's bad whenever it's been that long since you played the game, and it's been even longer since you actually beat the game. And if it wasn't for Chase, dude, I wouldn't know what the hell I was doing at the time. He's like, dude, you got to get the whale to come over there and smack it. And just like, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, okay, how did I figure out this before? Because that makes no sense.
Yeah, that whale bit, if you're talking about the thing that I think you are in, like, the Uru Lake area,
yes.
That's very confusing. There's not a whole lot of direction, and the narration is kind of vague there, where it, like, gives you clues as to what to do, so, you know, I don't blame you for getting tripped up in that area.
Yes. I would recommend any Phantasy Star, Chase. Any Phantasy Star. But that's me personally. That's just me personally. Like, I honestly love Phantasy Star.
I heard people didn't really care for 3 though.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, some people got burned out upon like. I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this. I don't know. I've just really enjoyed the Phantasy Star series. I kind of always liked it. I've never been really put off by the dungeon, you know, the old school, you know, first person going down the corridor point of view. I never really had a problem with that. I never had a problem with the battle layout to where it was not as spectacular as some people thought it was. It was more, you know, the enemy was in front of you. I never really had any problems with that. I honestly like the Phantasy Star narrative because if you haven't realized already, I am hugely invested in story in a game. And without story, I can't get behind it. And the Phantasy Star series, in my opinion, really has a very interesting story that if you put the time into it, you can really get something out of it. So
fair enough. Yeah, sorry, I had to check some stuff. I was getting a bit lost.
Yeah, no problem
Thought
there.
it'd give me like 5 minutes holding a wall, or like a couple minutes holding the wall, then running around aimlessly.
Oh, you were totally just trying to cheat through the game, weren't you? You were trying to pull out that walkthrough.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't lost.
Ah.
I was like stuck, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and it's like, oh, I had to do a spell.
I mean, there ain't nothing wrong with that, dude. I got like a whole bookcase full of walkthroughs.
That's cool. I just want to make sure that, because I meant to check it before I started, but I ran out of time to do that, so.
It's good, man. It's good.
Yeah, walkthroughs are a saving grace a lot of the time. No shame in pulling those out. I actually really like collecting like strategy guides, especially for some of the games from the 90s and 2000s that had those nice strategy guides with lots of cool artwork in. I like having them to display and look through and, you know, refer to if I get stuck somewhere.
Oh yes, God yes. Like, and that's one thing that's really cool about my local store is that they actually have a whole wall of strategy guides. Granted, most of them now are like, you know, the games that everybody has that, you know, no one wants to buy the strategy guide for that, you know, stuff like Tom Clancy's Siphon Filter and stuff like that. Granted, that was a good game back in the day, but still, they kind of burned out on the actual good. And I think a lot of it, probably you and me will agree on this, really the ones that we wanted were the RPG strategy guides. We didn't really care about the other strategy guides like fighting games and stuff like that.
Definitely, yeah. Most of the guidebooks that I have are for RPGs. I've got to ask you, Sam, I know you like Final Fantasy quite a bit. Do you know about the Final Fantasy IX strategy guide that came out? Like, have you ever heard anything, or do you own it or anything like that?
Hold on one second.
What do you mean? What's going on with it?
So, it's kind of infamous in that it came out, like, around the time that the internet was really becoming, like, a household thing, you know? Everybody liked going on and searching up stuff about their games. So,
Okay, before you go any further, are we talking about the Brady Games strategy
yes,
guide?
I think so, yeah.
I have it right now in my hand. It says at the bottom, enhanced by Play Online.
Oh, yes, enhanced by Play Online.
Yep.
So, what happened with the strategy guide is that there's not really anything in it. Like, there's a bunch of paragraphs that are like, well, you know, if you want to find this secret item, go to playonline.com and type in this secret code and you'll be able to find out. So it's a book full of nothing except for codes that you have to type into the computer.
Oh my God,
which will then tell you.
No, God. Dude, because I've had this since then, and you know what? I probably would have remembered it back then, but I don't even remember. I'm going to take a picture of it and put it in the chat just to show you.
Wow,
Like,
really?
Yeah. It's just bizarre. It's completely bizarre, and I'm thinking, like, who thought this was a good idea?
Probably idiots. Maybe, yeah. I mean, are the links even still good?
No, all that stuff.
No,
is
dude, it's
long
been gone, dude.
That's ridiculous. So the guide is essentially useless then.
Yes, the guide
Yep.
is useless, if that's the case.
That is crazy.
There's probably better guides online nowadays.
God,
Oh,
how do I
yeah,
dodge
absolutely.
these particle things? Okay, there we go. I couldn't dodge these stupid particle things. The spider things shooting out at me.
Where is the feed? I'm trying to find this.
Please die, spider thing. It will not
Alright,
die.
Chase is asking us,
Why do I
what games
suck?
are we
Oh,
looking for this year? He says that he's looking forward to Shenmue 3, Dragon Quest 11, and Valkyria Chronicles 4.
Whoa,
So,
there's a
is there
Valkyria
anything
Chronicles
that's-
4?
Yeah.
Oh, it won't let me put it up in the chat. Crap. My bad. It won't let me put a video up in there.
No brainer for me. Death Stranding, no contest. I am excited for Death
that
Stranding.
one looks pretty interesting, I know.
I'm going
You
to
know, as a
E3
fan,
and
you're
I'm
going to be really into it.
yeah, I'm going to E3 and I'm really excited just for that one game. Well, that might seem kind of fanboyish, but you know what? So be it. I love Hideo Kojima. I love Guillermo del Toro. It's like, it's a mixture made in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm excited to hear about what your experience at E3 is going to be like.
Hopefully it's going to be good. I know a lot of people were complaining last year, but a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's just a lot of long lines," and I kind of understand. But you know, you gotta go expecting that. I mean, it's a giant convention. It's not gonna be, you know,
Right.
it's not gonna be, you know, oh, you get it's not gonna be like it was years ago. Also, why is the spider not dying? I must have shot
Okay.
50 arrows into it.
For me, God willing, this actually happens this year, even though it's supposed to happen this year, but they haven't really given us a release date yet. Last of Us Part 2 and Vampire. Those are the 2 games I'm looking forward to.
Yikes. Wait, Last of Us Part 2 didn't come out yet?
No,
I thought it came out already.
no. Like they said it was supposed to come out this year, and like, let me just do a quick internet search real fast.
Spider guy's annoying me. Come on.
They're talking about a first playable demo at E3 2018, so that falls in your camp there, Pat. You better give me some info.
I'll be like, I'll throw it in the trash.
I swear to God, dude, you do not even understand what a good game is sometimes, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I probably do. I don't know. I was never a big fan of Last of Us. My friends were all trying to get me into it. I was like, it kind of just seems like a generic zombie game.
It's not, though, man. Look.
Oh, finally, it's
I'm
dead.
I'm not gonna try
Oh
to
my
be. I'm not gonna
God.
try to convince you one way or the other, but that storyline is amazing. That storyline is amazing. Last of Us puts every Uncharted game to shame whenever it comes to story. That's just me. Though.
I don't know. Like, I think I need to play it like through completely. I mean, I played it bits and pieces of it, but you know.
You need to, dude, and you need to just like. Let me put it this way: that story was so immersive that my wife would literally not let me play the game without her sitting beside me. Okay, she wasn't even playing the game, but it was like she was watching a movie.
Yeah.
That's how she explained it to me. That's how in-depth that story was. It was a very emotional, riveting, coming-of-age story, and it just did. I don't know. It was an amazing game for me. I loved it. But at the same time, I loved Dying Light, and everybody thought that game was trash.
Yeah, you know what? I might have to give that a shot. And Chase is actually saying, not Shenmue 3, Sam.
Yeah, I'm not. No, Shenmue 3, let me put it this way to you, okay? I am honestly very, very worried about Shenmue 3 in the same way I was worried about Final Fantasy 15.
Uh-oh. Sam's about to talk some stuff.
No, Shenmue is one of my favorite games of all time. Shenmue
Uh-oh,
2
everybody, I'll give you his home address. You can go burn it down.
Yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. I absolutely love Shenmue. I absolutely love Shenmue 2. Those games played a pivotal point in my life. Really, they did. If you had been listening to the live stream of the podcast earlier, you would have heard about that a little bit. I didn't really go in depth about that either. But I am honestly worried about all the hype that is built around Shenmue 3 that I don't think people are going to be happy with the game. I think I might be happy with the game because I am trying to tell myself to put that hype down. But I honestly don't know how well this game's going to come out. I really hope this game lives up to everything we hope it is. I really do.
You know, I'm with you on that, Sam. I saw like the early footage of it. I saw some pictures, and it seems like nobody's super duper, you know, jumping out of their seats like this is going to be the best thing since Ocarina of Time, and like
Yeah.
and like freaking
Yeah.
out. But I'm not really looking for that, to be honest. I think as long as it's a good game and it pulls me in, I think I'll be fine with that. But that's just my opinion. How do you feel about it, Claire?
That's exactly how I feel. You know, I heard a lot of negative reactions to the trailers and the footage that we've seen so far. Like, people seem to be really disappointed in, I guess, the quality of the animation and whatnot. But what stood out to me is that the artwork and the feel of the game and the environment seemed very faithful to the originals.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, you know what? If Shenmue 3 can give me that, I'm gonna be happy. If it gives me a decent story, I'm gonna be happy. I'm not expecting it to look like, you know, a AAA game like The Last of Us, for example. My expectations are not that high as far as presentation for it. So, I'm hoping that if they at least do justice to the first two and, give us a great story that moves us, then I'm going to be happy with it.
I can agree with that entirely, Claire. Let me kind of try to explain what I'm trying to say by hype. What I'm worried about is the community's reaction to the game. And what I'm personally worried about is that they're going to try to make the game, they're going to try to make so much out of the game. Chase just said it perfectly. It's a Kickstarter game, okay? I don't expect to have Shenmue 2 times 3 times the size. I expect to have something similar to like Shenmue, a small, close-knit, tight, lot of, not a whole lot of area to work, but a lot of story invested in that area. If I can get that, I'll be perfectly fine. I just don't want the game to be so spread out, so pulled off in so many different directions that it doesn't feel like Shenmue. And that's why I'm honestly worried about it, because like you just said, man, there are so many people who are losing their minds over the pictures and the 3D renders and everything else. And I was one of the guys that was watching E3 live whenever that happened, whenever they talked about Shenmue 3, whenever Yuzu walked out to the stage, and I was literally losing my mind. I don't know. I really hope it's great. I personally, in my heart of hearts, I think it's going to be the most awesome Shenmue period. Just because of where we are now, especially looking back at it, how long we've had to wait for it. But at this point, I'm trying not to put any hype into it at all, and that's part of the reason why I didn't say anything about it, Chase.
You know what? I'm actually kind of worried as well for the Kickstarter mentality. I mean, it's been delayed a few times already. I mean, we've seen what happened with Mighty Number 9. We've seen what happened to Ukulele. And it's like, I don't want the writing to be on the wall for Shenmue, where it's like Ukulele 2, almost.
Yeah, I definitely understand you guys' concerns. I know that, I felt a little bit sad for the fans that are, huge fans of Shenmue, and they're feeling really let down already by these initial trailers. So, I would hate to see this game, come to fruition and release only for people to be disappointed in it. So I understand that too. Like, even though I'm personally, pretty optimistic about it, it's a big deal, and if it flops, it's gonna flop hard.
Yeah, and I'm just afraid it'll also sway people away from that genre. But to be honest, the games like Yakuza is like well renowned, and it's essentially a spiritual successor to Shenmue. So I mean,
I think so long as they just keep the same mindset of open world, life experience, life simulator, continue to tell a story. So long as they do that, and they have, of course, it's got to be an interesting story. I have faith in man. I think so long as they do that and they focus on that, which I hope is what's going on, I don't think we're going to have an issue with it whatsoever. Whether everybody's happy with it or not, I don't know. But to be honest with you, completely, I would rather have, don't mean this to say I would rather have this than Shenmue 3, but I would rather have Shenmue 1 and 2 HD remaster before Shenmue 3, so that the people who never got a chance to play these games, or the people who are huge fans of the series but haven't played the game in years, have a way to play it again.
Look at that
way.
What?
In God's name.
How does this even happen?
Oh my
I love
gosh, she's
working
over
designs.
there. Wow. But no, I would really like to see that happen first. I would like to see a Shenmue 1 and 2 HD remaster happen, like they've been talking about for the past couple of years. So I that's me personally. I want to see Shenmue like completely remade for the PS2. I mean, for the PS4. Yeah, PS2. I want to see it completely remade for the PS4.
Poor Umi is stuck out there. She's not allowed to.
She's back. She's back.
I want to see if I can get both of them stuck. Yeah, it's kind of funny. It looks like it's just a oversight. I mean, it doesn't matter. They'll still follow you. I just love the AI, how it's like levitating over holes, levitating over,
She's like running desperately back to her friends, and they're like, "We don't care about you."
Yeah.
Y'all start laughing. I thought y'all done found like a freaking link to Shenmue, like Shenmue 3's release date or something.
No, if that was, I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I have a feeling that it's probably going to be at E3 and might be released this year. I'd like
I'm
to say.
telling you, they gotta do that HD remaster first. Oh my god, if they don't do that, they're gonna hurt. That's what I'm afraid of. They're gonna hurt themselves, is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that it's just not gonna.
It's not going to live up.
It's not the game. I don't think the game is the issue. I think the sales is the issue. I think trying to make the fans happy is the issue. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Because you're talking about people who there hasn't been a game since 2001. Well, that's for us here in the States.
Yeah, to be honest though, the Yakuza series is almost the exact same game, and it's just as well received.
I don't know. I've never really cared too much. Let me rephrase that. I've never liked the Yakuza series as much as I've liked Shenmue.
I don't know. It's just his opinion. I just meant the general idea.
Yeah, no. It's a spiritual successor, like you said, yeah.
So I think as long as it gets the gameplay feel, I think it'll be fine.
Dude, this kind of went from an anime stream to a straight up just,
Japanese stream.
Thank you, Chase. That's the point. There's no way they could wrap up this series with just Shenmue 3. There's no way. There's more story after this. So unless Shenmue 3 does good, we're not going to get the rest of the story. Not in gameplay. Chase knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Dang it, I'm lost. Where the heck am I supposed to go?
We waited this long for the third part of the series, of the third part of the story. Oh my god.
Is there any way there's like bombs or something you can get?
I don't know, man.
I can't pull out my weapons, so I gotta figure out some way. But yeah, I'm trying to see what there's to do. There's nobody giving me any hints. It's like go in the ocean. It's like, how am I supposed to do that?
Dude, you just jump off the balcony and swim. Dive.
I tried. Didn't work.
I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? We might probably call it here, just because I'm kind of lost and I have to do some research on where to go.
Hey,
Actually,
dude,
wait,
you dying?
Alright.
Yeah. So I'm not dying. I just don't know where to go. So I think I'll probably do some more research into where to go, and we'll continue on next time, because we got pretty far to begin with. We got like all the way to the second village.
Definitely, I think we're in a great spot to kind of wrap it up for today.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go save Teflon by the Sea. Hopefully my battery doesn't die and I have to restart this all over again. That would suck.
Nah, man, it'd just be, you have to speedrun it.
Yep. Alright, guys. Well, I guess from all of us here at SHIRO and our special guest Sam, we bid you adieu.
Later.
Thanks for joining us.
No, I gotta climb over equipment to get turn off the stream. Give me a sec.
Backroom details. I think it was 6 games there, David. 6 chapters.